Few institutions in ancient Rome illustrate the intertwining of law, religion, and military action as vividly as the Fetial College. This body of priests, often overlooked in modern discussions of Roman warfare, occupied a unique space where ritual and legality merged, ensuring that Rome's expansion was cloaked in moral legitimacy. Unlike generals who simply marched armies into neighboring territories, the Fetials embodied the idea that war had to be declared properly, in accordance with divine and civic norms, a concept the Romans called bellum iustum, or the just war. The Fetial College's origins trace back to Rome's early regal period, possibly even to the semi-legendary reign of King Numa Pompilius. According to Roman tradition, Numa, famed for his piety and wisdom, established the Fetials to provide a religious framework for diplomacy and military conduct. These priests were not ordinary clerics, they were guardians of legal and ethical propriety in Rome's foreign policy. Their primary role was to regulate declarations of war and the forging of treaties, ensuring that Rome's military actions were always underpinned by a ritualistic acknowledgement of the god's authority. A core function of the Fetials was the formal declaration of war. Before Rome could take up arms, a Fetial had to perform a precise ritual. He would approach the border of the offending state, carrying a spear and a symbolic piece of earth, invoking Jupiter, the supreme deity, as witness to Rome's grievance. He would recite a formulaic speech demanding reparations or the cessation of hostile acts. If the demand was ignored, the Fetial would ceremonially cast the spear into the enemy's territory, signaling that Rome was now justified in entering into war. This act transformed what might have been perceived as an act of aggression into a legally sanctioned military response, legitimizing it both in the eyes of the gods and of Rome's citizens. The Fetials also oversaw the making of treaties. In these cases, they ensured that all agreements were ratified under the auspices of divine law, binding both parties not only politically but morally. The importance of these procedures cannot be overstated. In Roman thought, a war undertaken without Fetial sanction was sacrilegious, risking divine punishment for both generals and the state itself. Such an oversight could invite omens, plagues, or military failure, a reminder of how religion and legality were inseparable in Rome's worldview. Interestingly, the Fetials' influence persisted even as the Roman Republic transitioned from a city-state to a Mediterranean superpower. While later generals might have commanded massive legions across distant provinces, formal Fetial ceremonies continued to provide a veneer of legality and morality to Rome's conquests. The careful adherence to ritual reflected a deeply ingrained Roman belief: Rome's strength lay not merely in arms, but in law and piety. By ensuring that wars were just, the Fetials safeguarded Rome's divine favor, a crucial asset in a world where omens and portents shaped decisions at every level. The concept of bellum iustum, as administered by the Fetials, also had profound political implications. It constrained ambitious leaders from waging wars purely for personal gain, requiring that military action be framed as a defense of Rome's rights or honor. In essence, the Fetials acted as early moral arbiters of international relations, blending legal oversight with religious sanction. In many ways, they were precursors to modern concepts of just war theory, which would later influence thinkers like Cicero, Augustine, and even European philosophers in the Middle Ages. Moreover, the Fetial College illustrates how Rome sought to integrate law, ritual, and civic ideology. Unlike purely secular legal codes, Roman law in this domain was inseparable from religious obligation. The Fetials made visible the connection between divine approval and political legitimacy. A general who ignored the Fetial procedures risked more than just political backlash, he threatened the cosmic order itself. This dual accountability, to both the gods and the people, reinforced Rome's self-image as a state destined to rule, yet bound by law and morality. Though small in number, the Fetials were highly esteemed. Their duties required not only ritual knowledge but also a deep understanding of Rome's legal system and foreign customs. Historical records suggest that their rituals were conducted with meticulous attention to detail, demonstrating Rome's belief that order, legality, and religious propriety could not be compromised, even in times of conflict. The legacy of the Fetial College resonates beyond ancient Rome. By institutionalizing a framework for declaring just wars, they contributed to a tradition in Western thought where moral and legal considerations are deemed essential in assessing the legitimacy of military action. From medieval scholars to modern international law, echoes of Rome's Fetials can be discerned in doctrines that attempt to distinguish justified wars from acts of aggression. In this sense, the Fetials were not only ritual specialists but also foundational figures in the ethical regulation of warfare, a remarkable fusion of faith, law, and statecraft that has rarely been equaled in history.